The weaponized grunt. Maria Sharapova's screams were measured at over 100 decibels, louder than a motorcycle. But there's actual science behind why players grunt, and it's not just for show. A 2014 study of Division I tennis players found that when players grunted, there was a 3.8% increase in hitting velocity and a 4.9% enhancement when they served, translating to a 7 kph faster serve with grunting than with no sound at all. The performance benefits are real and measurable. Grunting helps players coordinate their breathing with their swing, engaging core muscles more effectively during ball contact. This physiological advantage translates directly into increased shot power and velocity, but the benefits extend beyond the player making the noise. Research shows that grunting interferes with information absorption when facing an opponent, making it harder for players to decipher their opponent's intentions and placing them in a disadvantaged position as their ability to anticipate and react effectively is compromised. Studies found that higher grunt intensities yielded judgments of longer ball trajectories, affecting opponents' anticipation. This means loud grunting doesn't just help the grunter hit harder, it actively makes their opponent play worse by disrupting visual and auditory processing. Michelle Larcher de Brito became notorious for her extremely loud grunting during junior tournaments, with complaints from opponents about the volume and timing of her sounds during crucial points. Her grunt was measured at over 109 decibels, louder than a jet engine at takeoff. The WTA tried to implement volume controls and hindrance rules, but enforcement proved nearly impossible during live matches. How do you measure decibels in real time without disrupting play? The complexity of enforcement meant that grunting violations were rarely called, even in obvious cases. When tournaments attempted to crack down on excessive grunting, players who reduced their vocal intensity often showed measurable drops in shot power and accuracy, suggesting the performance benefits were genuine rather than psychological. This created a competitive dilemma because players who had developed their games around grunting found themselves at a significant disadvantage when forced to play quietly. The controversy reached its peak when established players began complaining about newer professionals who seemed to grunt strategically. Veterans who had played for decades without excessive vocalization found themselves unable to concentrate against opponents whose grunts seemed specifically designed to disrupt timing and rhythm. Modern players have become increasingly sophisticated about vocal strategy, understanding exactly how volume, timing, and pitch affect both their own performance and their opponent's concentration. What started as a natural breathing aid has evolved into a calculated, competitive advantage that remains largely unregulated. The court speed conspiracy. Tournament surfaces aren't as neutral as they appear. Court preparation techniques can dramatically alter playing conditions, and there's documented evidence of deliberate manipulation to influence playing styles and outcomes. Modern hard court surfaces use acrylic layers mixed with sand particles to control speed and bounce characteristics. The International Tennis Federation uses court pace ratings from 0 to 100, where changes as small as 5 points create dramatically different playing conditions that can favor specific playing styles. The composition of these surfaces involves complex chemistry. The ratio of sand to acrylic, the size of sand particles, the number of coating layers, and even the application temperature all affect how fast or slow courts play. Tournament directors work with surface specialists to achieve specific playing characteristics. Wimbledon provides the clearest documented example of deliberate surface evolution. The grass courts have measurably slowed since the 1990s through systematic changes in grass varieties, soil composition beneath the surface, and maintenance practices. This transformation wasn't accidental. It was a calculated decision to modernize the tournament. The All England club acknowledged that they wanted to reduce the dominance of serve and volley players and create longer, more entertaining rallies for television audiences. By slowing the grass, they effectively ended an entire era of tennis strategy, making baseline play viable even on the sport's fastest traditional surface. The US Open also has acknowledged making surface adjustments in response to player safety concerns and television requirements. Indian Wells and other Masters events have been observed using different court preparations for day versus night sessions, primarily due to temperature and humidity management needs. But these changes create measurably different playing conditions that can favor different player types. The French Open has been accused of using surface preparation to protect certain players or create more competitive matches. Clay court preparation involves decisions about sand composition, moisture content, and surface compaction that dramatically affect how the court plays. These technical choices can favor defensive players over aggressive ones, or power players over finesse specialists. The result is that professional tennis is played on surfaces that are carefully engineered to produce specific types of matches, rather than truly neutral playing fields that let pure ability determine outcomes. The Strategic Bathroom Vanishing Act. The Stefanos Tsitsipas bathroom break controversy at the 2021 US Open became tennis's biggest talking point and led to immediate rule changes that proved tactical bathroom breaks were a genuine competitive problem. The controversy centered around a first-round match where three-time Grand Slam champion Andy Murray said he lost respect for Stefanos Tsitsipas after the Greek world number 3 took multiple extended breaks at crucial times during their encounter. Murray was dominating the match when Tsitsipas disappeared for what officials recorded as a 7-minute bathroom break. When he returned, Murray's momentum was completely broken, and Tsitsipas went on to win in 5 sets. The timing was so suspicious that it became international news. The controversy wasn't isolated to one match. Throughout the 2021 season, Tsitsipas faced criticism from multiple opponents about the timing and duration of his breaks, particularly during momentum shifts or crucial match periods. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Alexander Zverev was equally direct after his own encounter with Tsitsipas's bathroom strategy. He's not going to the bathroom normally. Everyone knows what he's doing. It's unsportsmanlike. Statistical analysis of Tsitsipas's bathroom breaks during 2021 revealed patterns that defied biological explanation. His breaks averaged significantly longer than other players, and the timing correlated strongly with adverse match situations, after losing sets during opponent hot streaks or when facing breakpoints. Tennis physiologists confirmed that legitimate bathroom breaks should take 2 to 3 minutes maximum. Extended breaks of 7 to 8 minutes suggested activities beyond normal biological needs, such as physical recovery, strategic consultation, or psychological reset. After Tsitsipas caused a storm at the US Open with his long and ill-timed bathroom breaks, the ATP decided to bring about immediate and comprehensive rule changes in 2021. The swift response indicated that officials recognized this was a legitimate competitive integrity issue. The new regulations implemented by the ATP were strict and comprehensive. Maximum 3-minute duration, only permitted between sets or during medical timeouts. Medical supervision required for any break exceeding the time limit, and maximum of 1 bathroom break per match unless medically justified. The rule changes proved effective immediately. Since implementation, extended bathroom breaks have largely disappeared from professional tennis, demonstrating conclusively that the previous behavior was tactical rather than physiological. When the rules made strategic bathroom breaks impossible, they simply stopped happening. The medical timeout strategy. Medical timeouts in tennis have become one of the sport's most controversial strategic tools, with documented evidence showing their psychological impact extends far beyond legitimate medical treatment. Recent research provides the first real-world quantitative evidence that timeouts in tennis function well beyond the non-strategical purpose that they currently serve in the rulebook, confirming what players and fans have long suspected. Former professional Pat Cash argues that the rules surrounding medical timeouts are too vague, contradictory, easy to abuse, and hard to enforce, highlighting the systematic problems with current regulations. The timing patterns of medical timeouts reveal suspicious correlations with match momentum. Players frequently call for medical attention during crucial moments, after losing service games, during opponent hot streaks, or when facing match points. While some cases involve genuine injury, the timing suggests tactical considerations. The issue of medical timeouts has been a constant discussion in tennis, with players often accused of using the lenient rule for competitive advantage rather than medical necessity. The psychological impact is measurable. When a player receiving medical treatment returns to court, opponents often struggle to maintain their previous rhythm and intensity. The break disrupts established patterns and can reset match momentum entirely. Current rules allow medical timeouts for legitimate injuries, but prohibit treatment for loss of conditioning or fatigue. However, distinguishing between genuine injury and strategic gamesmanship proves nearly impossible for officials during live matches. The controversy intensified after several high-profile incidents where players appeared to recover remarkably quickly from seemingly serious injuries, leading to calls for stricter regulations and independent medical evaluation. Tennis forums and officials discuss imposing financial penalties for each timeout taken, recognizing that current enforcement mechanisms are inadequate to prevent strategic abuse of medical regulations. The night session setup. Tournament scheduling creates measurable advantages based on playing conditions, with documented patterns that systematically favor specific player types and age demographics in ways that affect competitive outcomes. Night sessions feature temperatures 10 to 15 degrees cooler than day matches, causing balls to travel 8 to 12% slower and bounce more predictably due to the physics of air density. These conditions favor aggressive baseline players who can swing freely without balls sailing long, while disadvantaging defensive specialists who rely on opponent errors in faster conditions. The temperature difference isn't trivial. It fundamentally changes the physics of tennis. Cooler air is denser, creating more resistance to ball flight and causing shots to travel slower and drop sooner. Hot air is less dense, allowing balls to carry further and bounce higher. These aren't minor variations. They represent different versions of the sport. Statistical analysis of Grand Slam scheduling patterns from 2015 to 2020 reveals systematic bias in session assignments. Younger players receive disproportionately more night session assignments compared to veterans, who more often play during challenging day session heat. The patterns are too consistent across multiple tournaments to be coincidental. The US Open's Arthur Ashe Stadium demonstrates the most extreme condition variations. Day sessions regularly exceed 95 degrees Fahrenheit on court, with humidity levels that create brutal conditions, testing experience, heat tolerance, and physical conditioning. Night sessions drop to comfortable temperatures in the mid-70s that allow maximum physical effort and aggressive play. These temperature differences affect more than player comfort. They change fundamental aspects of tennis strategy, with hot conditions requiring more conservative shot selection because balls carry further and courts play faster. While cool conditions allow aggressive shot making, because players can swing freely without worrying about balls sailing long. The scheduling patterns favor rising stars and younger players who thrive under bright lights and loud crowds, while established veterans often find themselves battling brutal day session conditions regardless of their seeding or ranking. It creates systematic advantages that compound over the course of major tournaments. The psychological advantages of night sessions compound the physical ones. Evening matches feature different crowd energy, enhanced lighting that can affect ball tracking, elevated media attention, and an atmosphere that energizes young players while potentially overwhelming veterans who prefer quieter environments. The cumulative effect creates a systematic advantage system where young, aggressive players receive optimal conditions while veterans face increasingly challenging environments. This scheduling bias can influence tournament outcomes in ways that extend far beyond pure tennis ability. The ranking protection scheme. The ATP's injury protection system and seeding committees create systematic advantages for established players that can last months beyond their competitive justification, fundamentally altering tournament draws and competitive balance. Protected rankings allow injured players to maintain artificially high seedings for up to 18 months after their return to competition. This system, originally designed to prevent unfair penalties for medical absences, has evolved into a mechanism that can create tournament draws favoring returning stars over consistently competing players. The mechanics of protected rankings are complex. Players who miss extended time due to injury can apply for protection that preserves their ranking from before the injury occurred. When they return, they can use this protected ranking for tournament entry and seeding purposes, even if their actual ranking has dropped significantly due to inactivity. Juan Martín del Potro's 2022 return exemplified this system's impact. After being away for a long time due to multiple wrist surgeries, his protected ranking earned him favorable seeding at Indian Wells, despite his actual world ranking dropping to 757. He received a first-round bye and faced a qualifier in his opening match, while other players with superior current form and rankings faced seeded opponents. Stan Wawrinka's 2021 comeback provided another clear example. After missing 13 months due to foot surgery, Wawrinka returned with a protected ranking that made him the 16th seed at Roland Garros, despite his actual ranking being 361 at the time. Young players who had been consistently competing and earning points throughout that period faced tougher draws because of Wawrinka's artificial seeding. The system creates cascading effects throughout tournament draws. When protected players receive high seeds, it pushes other players into more difficult sections of the bracket. Rising players who have earned their rankings through consistent competition find themselves facing tougher opponents earlier in tournaments because protected players are occupying easier positions. Grand Slam seeding committees possess additional authority to adjust rankings based on surface-specific performance, historically favoring players with extensive experience on particular surfaces over those with superior recent overall results. These adjustments almost always benefit established veterans over emerging players. Wimbledon's former grass court seeding formula was the most controversial example. The tournament used a complex calculation that heavily weighted grass court results from previous years, consistently elevating players who had competed in more grass tournaments while penalizing young players with limited grass experience but better current form. The 2018 Wimbledon seedings provided a stark example of this bias. Kevin Anderson, ranked 8th in the world, was elevated to the 4th seed because the committee decided his grass court history warranted the promotion. Meanwhile, players like Karen Khachanov, despite superior recent results, maintained their lower seedings because they lacked a grass court pedigree. Protected players have easier paths through events. Those with established names receive preferential treatment, and adjustments specific to surfaces favor experience over current form, all combining to give an advantage to veterans over emerging competitors. Tennis officials justify these systems as necessary to protect player welfare and maintain fan interest, but the practical effect is a systematic tilting of competitive balance toward established stars at the expense of rising talent trying to break through. The selective rule enforcement. Rule enforcement in professional tennis demonstrates documented inconsistencies based on player reputation, match importance, and situational factors, creating systematic advantages for certain competitors over others. The 2018 US Open Final between Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka highlighted these enforcement disparities most dramatically. Chair umpire Carlos Ramos penalized Williams for coaching violations, racket abuse, and verbal confrontation, ultimately awarding Osaka a game penalty that helped determine the championship. While Williams clearly violated rules during the incident, the controversy centered on selective enforcement patterns. Throughout that same tournament, male players had committed identical violations without receiving escalating penalties from the same officiating crews working other matches. Earlier in the tournament, Nick Kyrgios had thrown his racket, argued extensively with officials, and engaged in extended confrontations without receiving the type of escalating penalties that Williams faced. The differential treatment became a major talking point about officiating consistency in high-pressure situations. Time violation enforcement demonstrates the clearest documented bias patterns in professional tennis. Some players routinely exceed serve clocks without receiving penalties, while others are penalized for minor delays by the same officials in similar situations. Rafael Nadal's pre-serve ritual has been timed at consistently exceeding the 25-second serve clock. His routine includes multiple adjustments to his headband, touching his nose, ears, and clothing in sequence, followed by extended ball bouncing. It's a process that regularly takes 35 to 40 seconds. Despite thousands of serves exceeding the time limit, he rarely receives violations. The same tournaments where Nadal's extended routine goes unpunished will see players like Denis Shapovalov, Diego Schwartzman, and other less established competitors receive time violations for delays barely exceeding the 25-second limit. The differential enforcement creates competitive advantages for certain players. Coaching violation calls show similar inconsistency patterns. Obvious coaching communications between players and their team boxes are ignored in some matches, while similar behavior draws immediate penalties in others, often correlating with match importance and player status within the sport. Hindrance calls for excessive grunting, deliberate distraction, or unsportsmanlike behavior are applied inconsistently across the tour. Rising players and less established competitors receive violations for behavior that established stars perform routinely without consequences. Ball abuse and racket violations show stark enforcement disparities. Some players destroy equipment regularly without accumulating violations, while others face immediate penalties for minor infractions. The inconsistency creates an atmosphere where players cannot predict how rules will be applied. The Hawkeye Challenge system reveals additional bias patterns in officiating. Statistical analysis shows that certain players have significantly different challenge success rates when officiated by specific umpires, suggesting that personal relationships or biases influence line calling and other discretionary decisions. These enforcement inconsistencies extend beyond individual matches to career-long patterns. Some players develop reputations that influence how officials treat their behavior, while others face stricter scrutiny regardless of their actual conduct. The cumulative effect creates systematic advantages and disadvantages that can influence match outcomes and career trajectories. The Equipment Elite Club. Equipment access in professional tennis creates systematic performance advantages that extend far beyond what recreational players can purchase, establishing a multi-tiered system where elite players compete with fundamentally superior gear. Top players receive custom equipment modifications that are unavailable to other competitors, even other professionals. Major manufacturers develop prototype rackets, strings, and accessories exclusively for elite athletes, often 6 to 12 months before any version becomes available to other players, creating significant competitive advantages. Roger Federer's Wilson racket appeared identical to retail models that recreational players could purchase, but the reality was dramatically different. His frame featured a custom weight distribution, differing by 12 grams from commercial versions. It has modified string spacing, adjusted by 2 millimeters, and proprietary materials that wouldn't reach retail markets for years. The customization extended to every aspect of Federer's equipment. His strings were custom formulations of Luxilon ALU power with tension maintenance properties, lasting 40% longer than retail versions. His grips used materials and tackiness levels unavailable to other professionals, optimized specifically for his playing style and preferences. String technology represents, perhaps, the largest equipment advantage gap in professional tennis. Custom string formulations provide different spin characteristics, power transfer, tension maintenance, and durability compared to retail versions. These differences are measurable and significant in match situations. When Rafael Nadal's Babolat contract was renewed in 2017, it included provisions for custom string development that required 2 years of research and testing. The resulting polyester blend provided 15% more spin potential and 25% longer tension retention than any commercially available string, giving Nadal measurable advantages in shot production. Shoe and apparel customization extends these advantages throughout players' equipment. Nike's contract with Serena Williams included provisions for custom sole compounds designed specifically for her movement patterns and preferred court surfaces. The rubber formulation required 18 months of development and was never made available commercially. These custom shoes provided optimal traction, cushioning, and stability for Williams' specific playing style and physical requirements. Other players competed in commercial versions that, while high quality, lacked the precise optimization that elite players enjoyed. Elite players optimize every equipment variable, while their competitors work with approximations and compromises. In a sport where matches are decided by inches and milliseconds, systematic equipment advantages directly influence competitive outcomes. These documented advantages reveal that professional tennis operates with built-in inequality systems that extend far beyond prize money and tournament access. Have you ever seen something suspicious on court yourself? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe because I'll be posting a lot here. Until next time.